Hey guys, Scripted here with another video, and it's pretty self-explanatory, so let's get into it. She's having these visions, all this stuff. All of this stuff makes perfect sense, and it all relates back to what was happening to her on Ferrix. This is kind of what I was talking about the previous episode, that the Grape scene was unnecessary. I went through it. I didn't even talk about the morality of it one way or another. Of course, half the comments, that's all anyone was talking. Oh, it's just because you don't like it. It's like, I literally didn't even talk about that. Or whether it should be all I talked about. Why would you put it in there? This scene kind of validates what I'm saying, because she's having these panic attacks and having these dreams about what happened to her on Ferrix when she was tortured. The PTSD, like, would this be less believable if the Grape scene wasn't there? Of course not. It'd be exactly the same, and we would have no issues. So again, it just makes it pointless. And I did talk about, Gilroy's comments about it and how they don't really add up either. He says it's to bring clarity to her, and it's like, and it makes it more difficult. He said it makes it more difficult for her to get clarity, but she survived it and beat the guy up or whatever, killed him and got away. So my whole argument would be, well, no, like, the clarity should be easier now, if that's your argument, because she's fought the fight and won. So again, the whole scene just was kind of pointless. There's a lot of that in this show. But anyways, alas, this validates what I was saying, and it makes sense what's going on here. She's having really bad dreams and all that other stuff. It feels like a lot of that stuff was added. Not just that, but a whole pile of stuff in this show is just added for runtime. There's so many conversations. Like the episode where Andor finally gets away from, on Yavin 4, away from those bandit dudes or whatever. We had to have 4 scenes of them arguing about the leadership and stuff like that, and saying the same things over and over and over. It just feels like a lot of stuff in this show is just there to waste time. And I think that scene in the last episode relating to Bix is one of those. I honestly think that's why they put it in. You didn't need it. The gravitas of her situation is already well documented. It was literally just there to take up more time. And that's so much of this show is like that. Hopefully we won't get too much of that in the next 3 episodes. But so Sirill lives on Ghormon, I guess, now? So he must have got transferred there. Does that mean that Deidre told him what they were up to or whatever, because she was assigned there? I don't know. But, you just think about those last couple shots of him walking. Everybody's dressed like it's the 1950s. The music sounds like the 1950s. Like, they didn't accidentally make this feel like, 1950s America. They purposefully did that. Everyone's dressed like that. We had the one speeder, but there's no droids, not a single one to be seen. There's no aliens, not a single one to be seen. There's literal pigeons. Pigeons! They weren't weird alien pigeons either, they're just pigeons. Oh man, again, it's like you're trying to escape to a galaxy far, far away, and you're getting 1950s everything. It's just very, very unfortunate, that they decided to do such a non-Star Wars show. Okay, and before you say, oh, well, no, look at their weird kinds of pigeons. No, these are not CGI. These were not altered. This is literally a pygmy powder. An English pigeon. And this is what I mean, with this huge budget, there's certain things that it just doesn't even look like they tried at all. Okay, now we do get a blurry alien in the background. You notice him in the brown cloak there. I don't know if that's a Mon Calamari or what that is. It just feels like they're not really trying. We've got teacups and all this stuff, and again, it's not that you can't have teacups. You could. It's the whole thing. It's as a whole. It just looks like a normal Earth situation. If you had teacups and droids walking around and little aliens and a Jawa, you'd be like, oh, okay, whatever. You wouldn't even notice the teacups. But you got pigeons from the UK, teacups from France, 1950s United States attire on everybody, and 1950s music. Okay, we just got a couple more aliens, of course, in the background only, so we've got 3 so far. So then we get the breakdown of what's going on with Sirill and why he's on Ghormon, and he accepted the job on Ghormon, and if we get the breakdown from his overbearing and very annoying mother who says this is a step down in your career, blah, 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 blah. We're just doing the same thing we did in season 1 with her. I guess they couldn't think of any other way to explain why he was there other than having his mother just have the same exact insufferable conversation with him that she had literally like 6 times over bowls of crunch berries in season 1. Anyway, that's how they decided to do it. I don't know what this means with Deidre. I thought she was on Ghormon too, but he didn't say anything when his mom said, "Oh, you walked away from a beautiful girlfriend and whatever on Coruscant." He didn't say that he didn't do that, so maybe he just doesn't want to tell her stuff because she's annoying, but I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed that we had to have another one of her dumb, annoying scenes to explain what was going on in this guy's life, rather than finding another way to do it. And again, everyone's like, "Oh, it's so amazing, the writing." It's like, is it though? When you're going back to the well again with this guy, you can't find another way to explain why he's in the situation he's in other than another conversation that we've had 15 times. Do you see what I'm saying? So the Ghormons, who sound very French, are listening in on his conversations with his mother. And of course, the older guy's like, "Oh my gosh, his mother's horrible." I really hope this isn't a convenient thing that he just happens to take a job in Ghormon because we need him there, because he's one of the main characters just for the show. I hope they give a satisfactory reason. I feel like they're going to. It's going to have something to do with Deidre. I really hope that's the case. And it's not just a total happenstance. That's going to make it lame. And it'll just look like he was shoehorned in there. And that's the best they could come up with, is that, oh, he just took a transfer. I'm hoping I'm wrong. We'll find out. A couple more background aliens. Okay. Now, bear in mind, Coruscant was full of aliens in the prequels. They did this little scene where Bix and Andor go to shop. So we had the previous scene where Andor's sort of telling her, if you need somebody to talk to, and she's dealing with like heavy PTSD, and then now she's sort of being there for him because he just doesn't like it there. He doesn't like Coruscant. Okay, I get they're trying to like, oh, they're there for each other. I get that, but like, it's funny to me. It's like he doesn't like to go shopping. He gets anxiety because he's shopping on Coruscant. Meanwhile, she literally got tortured like almost to death. It's like they're there for each other. I'm just saying, it just isn't. There's not a lot of depth there. And then, of course, again, the store is a regular corner store you would see in any city. There's nothing about it that is different or anything. There was that stupid little alien thing sitting there, but that was literally it. I mean, it just looked like any other store you would walk into in any big city. Again, they had so much money. I just wish there was more that they were willing to give. The guy gives him a spider that he sells, I guess, to tourists. It's stuffed spider or something, whatever. And it's got information for him about a meeting. Okay, whatever. And those are the Ghormon, I guess, rebels, right? Or whatever, protesters, not happy with the Empire being there or whatever it is. They're trying to get him as an Imperial or somebody connected to the Imperials, or I don't know if they want access to his information to do with the silks these spiders make, because it's a big clothing. Remember the big ad? Whatever it was, the second episode or whatever. The big ad that we had to see, the 2-minute long ad about how they make clothes in Ghormon. So I don't know. But they need him for something, and they gave him the spider, and he's going to show up to the meeting, I'm sure, and find out what it's about. Okay, so I feel like I'm missing something here. So they're having this discussion. She's talking about how she can't get the guy that died out of her head, and Andor keeps referring to him as a soldier, and then he refers to him as an Imperial soldier. He was an officer. It would have been nicer if they just used the term officer, because I'm trying to think, was there any other Imperials that got killed? I mean, of course there are. So here's the thing. I'm pretty sure she's talking about the fact that she's struggling with the fact that she ended up killing that guy that was essaying her. Okay. I don't understand, like Cassian blew up an Imperial transport that had like 20 dudes in it. Like, and then they're having this discussion. She can't get over it, and he's like, that's the way it is. Like, he was a threat. It had to be done, and she just can't get over it. But it's like, you realize that Andor killed like a ton of dudes. He shot up a bunch of stormtroopers. He killed a transport, blew up a transport, killed a bunch of guys. Like, this is a weird conversation that they're having. Like, she's struggling with the fact that she killed an Imperial officer that was trying to SA her. Meanwhile, like, that's what they're doing. Like, they're rebelling. They're like, I'm trying to understand why we went from the idea that the Grape scene coupled with the torture was supposed to, according to fans of the show in comment sections, was supposed to make her more willing to do bad things to Imperials, like radicalize her was the word many people are using. But now and you think that after the first scene, you're like, oh, she's struggling, PTSD, blah, blah, blah. But now she's struggling with the idea of being radical, which is what they've been doing, and Andor killed a whole bunch of them at the same time she did. That one guy that was really trying to harm her, like trying to connect the dots here, how this works. Her character just went on a complete loop. So none of that radicalized her. I don't know. I don't get it. Like, what do you think you were a part of? If you didn't want to be a part of the rebellion or be involved with what's going on, then why were you involved? Like, go away. I don't get it. I don't know. I just don't get why she's feeling guilt. Am I crazy? Like, it sounds very unnatural and strange in that kind of a situation. I also just want to mention, again, an awful lot of walking and just spending time. I'm just saying, with the editing and everything else, just, again, increase that runtime. So he puts a string on the bottom of his door before he leaves to see if anyone's breaking in, I guess, or snooping on him or whatever. The string's broken. Obviously, there's more to this. He must know what's going on. I feel like Deidre told him when she wasn't supposed to, because there's something more going on. I feel like he knew what he was doing when he was talking to his mom about how the Ghormons are nice people and there's nothing to worry about with them and all that stuff. It's almost like he knew he was being recorded and he was saying all the right things, and now they've invited him to a meeting. So I'm hoping that all of this is a result of he's part of Deidre's plan here, and the fact they're trying to extract all that stuff for the... Again, the whole show's based on, like, getting materials to build the Death Star, but they need the whatever it is for the lenses or whatever on the laser or whatever. And so I have a feeling he's informed and part of it. I could be wrong. I hope he is. That would make it a lot more interesting, but he might also just happen to be there, which would suck. Just had a thought here. So Andor and Bix are sitting there eating, and why is it so dark in there? Is there a reason for that they can't turn on a bigger light? Is it just to create the mood of mopey dreariness with the rain, I guess? But I don't know. It's just like, let's be in the dark because that's what it feels like. It feels like you could have more light if you wanted to, but the scene needed it kind of thing. Does that make any sense? Okay, so now I'm not even sure if she was talking about the SA guy or if it was some other soldier from season 1 that I don't remember, or something in the last year. Somebody saw her face and he killed the guy. Killed the soldier. That's what it sounds like. And it's like, okay. And then right after that, she's like, and he's like, this is a war. What do you think is going to happen? And then she's like, well, if it is a war, then we better win. What was the purpose of this scene? Just to give Andor crap? Just to give him crap? Because then you're like, oh, well, if this is a war, then we better win. So you aren't really that upset that he killed the guy? It's just a matter of you better win? She's all over the place. I guess she should be irrational and crazy right now with what happened to her, but I don't know. It just seems, it's just like I said, the previous scene, it's like, oh, what did you think you're getting into? Now it's like, oh, I know what I'm getting into. It's a little all over the place. I expected some irrationality. I expected more of the type of thing you saw in the first scene where she's hallucinating stuff and whatever, or dreaming. I guess it was kind of a bit of both. But I didn't expect it to go like that, total opposite position just at the snap of a finger. Just weird. She should already be like, yeah, this is a war. This is what we're doing. Like, why does he need to convince her of that after all this time? And then she is convinced and says, we better win then. And she's not happy that she's, stuck on Coruscant and protected, but it's like, you're in a war that you want to win, and this is part of it. So she's just like, she's irrational, which I think is okay, but she's irrational in a really weird way. Kind of just all over the place in terms of the greater picture. Again, I totally get the hallucinations, all that stuff, and some form of irrationality, but this is just kind of strange. And once again, we're watching Sirill walking. How much of this show so far, this episode, has been Sirill walking? Is this another 25-minute show that they stretched to almost an hour? Oh, man. It's a lot of this, guys. A lot of this is filler stuff just to make it seem longer than it is, honestly. So, and I said in the last episode, the one character's arc that is interesting in this show to me is Deidre's. Her arc is drawing Sirill in, which makes it their arc. And so I would make the argument that their arc is the most interesting. I don't find really anything else about the show interesting, but this is fairly interesting, at least from a story perspective. I still think it's very much missing the Star Wars feel, all that stuff, but I do find this interesting, and I'm curious to see what he says. Yeah, see, he knew someone was doing stuff. So that's not the first time that he put that string. He assumes all of his stuff is bugged. Sirill, I'm liking it. I'm digging it. I thought he was really corny in season 1. I thought he was just kind of a goof. It's nice to see his arc moving. I didn't really like the first 3 episodes where he was just like the same. And he was just loving his job again. And was the same guy, just literally identical, except he was just... partners with Deidre, but, we're starting to see some growth here. It's been a while, but we're starting to see some differences. And it looks like he's having fun doing it, which is cool too, doing the sort of spy thing. And these 2 characters are the only ones to me that have really seen much change. Everybody else is literally basically exactly like they were at the beginning, other than, I guess, Bix, but basically she's the same as she's been since she started getting tortured, so... Am I the only one who just thinks that, these Imperial scenes really lack? And maybe, again, it's because Star Wars, they're dealing with, galaxy-level stuff. And this is them, talking about, a couple incidents. And then, Deidre's like, it's Andor, we need to find him. And she's mad that she's transferred off of whatever the other guy's role is. And he didn't call her to help him. And it's all just, office drama. And the guy's like, oh, how can I repay you? Take me out to lunch and buy me lunch. It's like, oh, it's so everyday blah. When the Imperials had meetings in the movies, they were talking about big stuff that really mattered. They weren't talking about little issues here and there, little details. Maybe that's my problem with this show. Maybe it's because, to me, this is all small scale, not meaningful enough stuff. What material are we going to get for the Death Star in this episode or this section of episodes? Again, I go back to it. She's like, oh, we need to catch Andor. How was Andor allowed to test a TIE fighter when the Empire knew what he looked like? They never explain that. He's just there. And it's so the Empire looks kind of incompetent, and I also don't like that. I don't like my villains looking incompetent for the sake of the plot. So they were smart enough to put some of the aliens from the Senate in this, and actually having speaking roles. That's good. I'm trying to understand why Mon Mothma is so worried about Ghormon. Again, is this a happenstance? Does she happen to try and get this legislation passed about lowering crime rates or whatever it is? A bunch of stuff that since Palpatine's took over is not going well, and she's trying to get all these votes. Yeah, so I find that interesting that she's so concerned about Ghormon, because really not a whole lot has happened there yet, other than they're seeing an increase in crime like a whole bunch of other systems. So I'm just trying to figure out, again, is this just her happening to care about Ghormon? There has to be more to it, right? There has to be. She must know something, right? That the Empire's involved there somehow, because the whole thing is her work right now is for the rebellion, not just bland Senate stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess we'll see what happens. So essentially, he's saying that his people, and I'm sure other senators, are at the point where they just don't want to risk voting against what the Emperor wants because they don't want to cause any problems. That's a fairly, reasonable thing to put in here, because the complacency, when tyrannical rule takes over, the reason it's able to succeed and last for as long as it lasts, and we see this in the 20th century and otherwise, is that people in positions like government, in particular, don't want to lose their position. They don't want to lose where they're at, right? And under these socialist, communist, whatever, fascist societies, the government tends to be quite large, a lot bigger than it needs to be. And then those people, again, they don't want to lose their jobs, so they sort of go along to get along with whatever the person in power wants them to do. And then others are recruited. In Russia, they recruited a lot of private sector individuals to be commissars and spy on their neighbors and yada, 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 because, again, they didn't want to lose what they had. And they get those sort of promises that they'll be left alone so long as they fulfill this obligation to the state. So that actually makes sense. I don't know. Again, the scene was really long and drawn out. It didn't need to be that. She didn't need to be talking to tons of people, but I guess they just want to show that basically no one is going along with what Mon Mothma wants. And again, she keeps bringing up Ghormon, and he's bringing up Ghormon, and there's a blockade or whatever with Ghormon, making a big issue of Ghormon. So essentially, Buddy there, the guy that was the sort of Imperial mole for Luthen in season 1, still doing it. And he knows about Dedra being tasked with Ghormon, whatever is happening on Ghormon. But this is where it gets a little weird, because this he's talking to Luthen after we see Mon Mothma making a big deal about Ghormon. I would have thought it would have been the opposite. He talks to Luthen, he finds out that Ghormon's a big deal, and then Luthen says, do what you can in the Senate to lift the blockade or whatever and support Ghormon. But she didn't. It's like she's caring about it for what reason exactly? I don't know. Again, she might know something. I guess we'll find out, but that's basically the skinny of that scene. I get the sense from this and the way this is being filmed, and again, the 1950s and everything, it almost feels like, or it could be the 30s, I guess. It almost feels like they're trying to use the Great Depression, almost, like the decisions being made in government and the negative effect, or by people in power, not even necessarily government, and the impact that has on their economy. But we know from the previous episodes that basically they're trying to squeeze out the industry of Ghormon to get the people out of the way so they can suck all that, whatever it is, resource out of there. And I guess it's like they want to, maybe there's a factor, it's like they want to extract the, whatever it's called, whatever it is for the Death Star, without having to compensate people of Ghormon. But to me, it's like, again, you're the Emperor, like just go in there and... I guess people will be like, oh, what are you extracting this resource for? But, he's the Emperor. He can kind of just make up whatever he wants, can't he? He's been doing that. So, it's kind of like he's been presented as this guy in the prequels as having this ultimate authority. And in the sequels, of course, as well. And I understand that the Senate isn't dissolved yet. But even in the prequels, man, he had a pretty tight grip on everything. So it's like... And all these senators, like the guy that Mon Mothma was talking to, are like, oh, we can't take the risk of going against what he wants. And Ghormon's just going to have to be part of that risk. Oh, well. So you're kind of like, if you're the Emperor and all these senators are literally just voting the way you want all the time, why would you be super concerned about killing the silk industry on Ghormon in order to go and extract their resources? Ghormon has 800,000 total people. What are you worried about? I said this in another one of my reviews of one of the episodes. It's like, why would the Emperor really care enough to bother blockading and causing problems for their business? In fact, wouldn't it be the opposite? Let them continue to run their business and, in fact, let their business flourish. And then they probably won't make a lot of noise about us extracting whatever it is we're extracting. And then you could always just lie if anyone asks you why you need this and say it's for something other than the Death Star, right? Like, that's... So the whole thing's a little bit convoluted, and it's a lot of unnecessary action from the Empire for reasons I don't fully understand. Because even Krennic, right? They were talking in that meeting about, like, with all the other Imperial officers, Dedra and the other guy, the main guy from the security thing that was there with her, and they're part of this, and it's like they're talking about how, we need an uprising, we need an excuse to crack down on the Ghormons, and so they're gonna put provocateurs or something, or that do stuff. It doesn't look like that's the case. It looks like it's these guys now who don't sound like provocateurs, but I guess we'll see, to create an environment where the Empire can justify cracking down. And I'm just like, why would you need to do all this? Like, is the material they're trying to extract literally in the exact same area that the silk spider creatures are? Like, is that why? Like, again, let their businesses flourish, give them all the money in the world, and then they won't really care if you're extracting another resource. And again, you can just lie about what it's for. So this whole thing just seems unnecessary from an empirical point of view to be going through all this. So then this guy says that he's all mad because at night they can't get any sleep because there's these big trucks going through, and we saw them earlier. They drive down the same street that Sirill lives. So okay, is that telling me that they are already extracting said resource? So again, why do they have to drive through the city to do that and make a big stink and make it all obvious to make these people get mad so that they protest, and then you have an excuse to kill them all? Was that the whole goal? Was to just kill all the Ghormons? Like, I'm trying to understand. Like, is that the goal? Because I thought it was to extract the resource. Wouldn't you be a smarter emperor if you just pulled a Mr. Burns and put your pipe down from the land over here underneath them? You know what I mean? Or Daniel from There Will Be Blood, right? You put the pipe down in the ground, then you go underneath the other guy's land and steal his oil, and he doesn't know? Like, why would you be extracting this material and then driving it through the streets night and day with trucks and making people angry? Again, why are you trying to rile up the Ghormons? That's my question for this 3-episode block. What is the purpose of getting them all worked up? If all that happens is it ends up being the Ghormon massacre for no real reason other than just being dumb, the Emperor being dumb and pissing these people off instead of just letting them have their jobs and make their money and whatever, that's super dumb. I really hope there's more to it than that. I'm really hoping there's more to it than that. I'm trying to give these people the benefit of the doubt, but I feel like it's going to be stupid. So again, they're building a fortress. So Krennic said within 3 years, they have to have all this material extracted from Ghormon. So that's a year ago. Now there's 24 months to go, and the Empire's bothering to build a big old fortress to do what exactly? Again, just go in, mine, and leave. Why all of this hubbub? What are they doing this for? And the Ghormons are mad because it's going to cast a shadow on the memorial of like a bunch of people who got slaughtered, I guess, by Imperials or something. And the Imperials promised they wouldn't cast a shadow on our memorial. It feels like all of this is unnecessary. Again, I hate to be a broken record, but if you're the Empire, like what are you doing this for? I don't fully understand what the point is at all. There would have been much easier way to do what you're doing, especially when you know you have the backing of the Senate, as I said, and as the guy said, all the senators are saying. Okay, so they just said that basically the idea of Tarkin, so they called it the Tarkin massacre, and I was kind of wondering what was going on. And so this isn't technically the Ghormon massacre they're doing. They're essentially saying that that's already taken place, and he alludes to the fact that Tarkin himself killed 500 people. And in the Ghormon Massacre EU story, he lands a ship on a bunch of people. But they were blocking a landing platform in the EU story. This sounds like it was like in the middle of the square. That's the monument that the building's going to shadow over. And they're all pissed off that the Imperials are building what they think is an armory after all that has already happened. Again, if you are Palpatine or Tarkin or anything, why are you drawing all this negative attention when you're trying to build a Death Star? Like, if this whole show's about building the Death Star, right? That's what it's all about for them, right? On their side. Why would you be drawing so much negative attention and doing dumb stuff like killing 500 people in the Tarkin Massacre or building an Imperial armory in the middle of the city where people are not going to be happy with that? Why don't you just go about your business a little quieter and a little smarter? Not be so overt? Like, the whole point of the Death Star is to keep it secret until it's finally used, so that it is an ambush technique, and then once people see the true power, then they'll never rebel again against the Empire. Why are you drawing attention to yourself? This seems really stupid. So Luthen wants Andor to go to Ghormon, which we saw in the trailers, to find out what's going on, because the Empire's squeezing them so hard. I guess that's a playoff of Leia's the more you tighten your grip, the more systems will slip through your fingers. And I get that is an aspect of the Empire, but again, as it pertains to the Death Star, why would they be being that stupid? What would be the purpose? Shut down Ghormon industry for the purposes of... I don't know. And then now we're on Dakar at the same resistance base from The Force Awakens. So this has been basically a rebel base for how long? So then we have this scene where Saw and his henchman Saw Gerrera show up, and Will's made what appears to be a very large bomb, bigger than the previous ones. And Saul wants him to teach one of his guys how to do this. He's like, no, we negotiated, I'm leaving tomorrow. I can teach him one thing today. And he's like, no, you have to stay. I said so, and I don't care whether we negotiated anything, and walks away. Again, just morally gray rebellion stuff. No one's really good. Everyone's compromised and crappy. And, Saw's monologue was... whatever. She did this drawn-out monologue about killing yourself from the inside out or the outside in, and all of which was totally unnecessary. But anyway, sorry, I just realized it's not a bomb. It can't be a bomb because he asked if it had been tested. So it's some sort of weapon. He did mention something about energy, so it's some sort of energy weapon, I would presume. Anyway, okay, and then Andor leaves, and Bix takes a hit of something. Okay, medicating for trauma, I'm assuming. There's a lot going on in this episode that is interesting and strange, as I've already gone over. Certain things don't make a whole lot of sense in terms of motivations and also implementation of authority and things of that nature with the Empire. Most of the show wasn't quite as much filler as the previous episodes, but there was still a good chunk of filler. It's whatever. Again, to me, the most interesting thing is the relationship between Sirill and Deidre, and the fact that the other Imperial mole knows that she's tasked with Ghormon. But the whole Ghormon thing and the way the Empire's handling it just does not make sense from a strategical, tactical standpoint whatsoever. And it makes me feel like the Empire's super stupid. Or there's some other thing they're going to throw at us, but I don't think they are. I think we would have known by now if there was some other reasoning. Krennic gave the reasoning. Is it possible we'll find something else out? I guess. But at this point, if it wasn't coming from the mouth of the Emperor himself, it would seem kind of pointless and not as not to be taken seriously. So, anyways, guys, that's my take. It's whatever. It's not... these 3 episode blocks, it really doesn't... The first one is kind of very... It's sort of the startup, but a lot of... Even at the end there, when it's showing Bix and it's showing Andor walking off, it's like a full minute and a half of just him walking and the music, and there's a lot of that type of stuff going on. It's very drawn out. It's quite boring, but at least there's a couple things that are kind of interesting at this point. We'll see what happens. Let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this content, please like, subscribe. It always helps the channel. Feel free to check anything else on my channel. Have yourselves a really